Chapter 10. We're going to learn how to reconstitute powdered drugs. Some drugs will come in a powdered form in a vial, and you'll have to mix that with a liquid or what we call a diluent. The reason for that is once it is diluted, it has a minimum amount of time that it is stable, and so that's the reason why we prepare it right before we give it. So the thing you're going to have to know is the type of diluent you're going to use. That will be specified on the label, and the volume that you're going to add to the powder. You can find these things out by looking at the med label, the package insert, or a drug book. You also will need to know the route. Are you giving it IM or IV? Typically IM, reconstituting for IM will be more concentrated than it is for IV. You will add the diluent as directed, and you'll roll gently to avoid air bubbles. Air bubbles will distort your dosage as you draw it up. You want to print your initials, the expiration date and time, which we've already talked about on other labels, and you will also need to document the strength of the solution if it's applicable on the label, and we'll see a label that applies to. Okay, here is an example label. This label is very specific about how to add this diluent. What does it tell you? You have to kind of turn your head or your computer screen a little bit. It gives you this information right down here. For mixing, directions for mixing. Do not add water until you dispense. When dispensing, you're going to slowly add 75 milliliters of water. After partially filling bottle, replace cap and shake vigorously. You can shake this one because it's an oral solution, which tells you right over here. And then you add the remaining liquid and continue to shake. Since it is an oral solution, does the diluent need to be sterile? The answer to that is no. It would tell you if it needed to be sterile, and this just says plain water here. For oral solutions, it does not have to be sterile. What is the milligram dosage strength of the prepared solution? It's going to tell you right here, 250 milligrams per 5 mLs. It also gives you the dosage strength in units, 400,000 units per 5 mLs. Determine the expiration date if you reconstitute this drug on March 15th at 4:40 p.m. So you're going to have to look at the label and find out how long it is stable for. And I'm looking for that. You may have found it already. And here it is. You have to discard after 2 weeks. So if you reconstituted on March 15th at 4:40 p.m., then 2 weeks from that would be March 29th at the same time, 4:40 p.m. How must the reconstituted solution be stored? Tells you that right here. Keep it in the refrigerator. If the dosage ordered is 125 milligrams, how many milliliters then are going to be needed? We can use the formula that I taught you last week, what you have on hand over your, your ordered dose over what you have on hand. So it would be 125 is what is ordered, milligrams, over your 250 milligrams times your volume, which is 5 milliliters. So we can cancel out our milligrams, so we're left with milliliters. We know that 125 goes into 250 twice, so the answer would be 5 over 2. 5 divided by 2 would give you 2.5 milliliters would be your answer. For a 500 milligram dose, we would do the same thing with our ordered dose being 500. What we have on hand is 250. And again, that's in 5 milliliters. Cancel out our milligrams. We can drop our zeros there and then we know that 25 goes into 50 2 times. So our answer would be 10 milliliters. How many units of medication will there be in a 5 milliliter dose? We already talked about that. There's 400,000 units per every 5 mils. What should you do with this medication before administering it? You want to shake it well. Told us that when we were mixing it. What must the person who reconstitute the medication print on the label? And of course that would be your initials, and I would also add when it was reconstituted. This particular slide gives you a package insert rather than the back of the vial, so we can get specific information from it as well. One thing I want you to note is that it gives us information for IM use and for IV use. So you have to know which route are you giving it, and then make sure that you're looking at the correct directions for whichever route you are giving it. So identify the types of diluent that can be used for reconstitution under the section labeled for intramuscular use. So of course we're going to be looking up here, and it tells us that we dissolve the contents in sterile water or bacteriostatic water for injection. Then look next at the 4-column table for reconstitution and notice that the information is provided for the 4 different strengths of vials available. So in other words, this particular medicine, ampicillin, will come in a 250 milligram vial, a 500 milligram vial, 1 gram, and 2 gram. And it will tell you the amount to be added in milliliters to each of those vials, and then the approximate available volume that you will end up with. So, how much diluent is required for a 500 milligram vial? 1.7, right there. How much diluent is required for a 1 gram vial? 3.4, right there. And for a 2 gram vial, we would add 6.8 of our bacteriostatic water or sterile water. Now, the milliliter dosage strength for all 4 reconstituted solutions is the same. What is it? It tells us right here. They're all 250 milligrams per milliliter. Now, one thing I want you to notice is these amounts that you're adding right here are not the same as these. In other words, your total volume after you mix it up. And the reason for that, of course, is because the powder is also a volume and accounts for those increased numbers from the amount that you added. Okay, and then under direct IV use, how much diluent should be added to the 250 or 500 milligram vials? says we're going to add 5 milliliters of sterile water or bacteriostatic water. What stipulation is made for direct IV administration of the 250 and 500 milligram reconstituted solution? This is going to be important. It says to administer it slowly over 3 to 5 minutes if you're giving it direct IV. Locate the caution pertaining to rapid IV administration. Right here. If you administer it more rapidly than you should, it can cause convulsive seizures. So you can see why it's a good idea to read the label. I told you that we would look at a label that is an example of different dosage strengths that can be mixed. And this is an example of one of those. Right here is that information. You can see right here the milliliters of diluent that needs to be added in order to get the approximate units per milliliter of solution. So if we add 75 milliliters of diluent to prepare a solution of penicillin, what dosage strength are you going to print on the label? The dosage strength would be here, 250,000 units per milliliter. And if you added 33 milliliters, then your dosage strength would be 500,000 units per milliliter. And if you added 11.5 milliliters, your dosage strength would be 1 million units per milliliter. Now you might ask, well, how would I know which one of those to do? That would depend on your dosage as to which one of those you would choose, the dosage that was ordered for the patient. Now, does this preparation require that you refrigerate it? Yes, it does. After reconstitution, the solution should be refrigerated. And if we reconstitute it on June 1st at 2 p.m., then what is the expiration time and date that you'll print on the label? If it was June 1st at 2 p.m., it's going to be 7 days later, so it's going to be June 8th at 2 p.m. That would be the expiration date. What is the total dosage strength of this vial? That's going to be found right here. 20 million units total are in this vial. What else do you print on the label besides the dosage strength that you just reconstituted? And of course, that's going to be the date and time and your initials, possibly the patient. Room numbers are subject to change, so we don't often do that. Where will you locate the information on the diluent to be used? Because if you'll notice in reading this particular label, it doesn't give us that information. So we're going to have to look in the package insert or a drug book. One last label. This is levothyroxine. It's for IM or IV use. What is the dosage strength of this vial in micrograms? 200 micrograms. Now what if we had a dose ordered in milligrams? Then we would have to convert our micrograms to milligrams. You know that there are 1,000 micrograms in 1 milligram. And so if you calculated that out, you would end up with 0.2 milligrams would be the dosage strength. What volume of diluent must you add to prepare this solution? Let's see if it tells us. Yes. Use immediately after reconstituting with 5 milliliters of 0.9% sodium chloride or normal saline. So we would use 5 milliliters volume. And we've already talked about the kind of diluent that must be used. How long is it going to retain its potency? Not long, because it tells us to discard any unused portions. So in other words, you have to use this immediately after reconstitution, and you don't store it. What is the per milliliter strength of the reconstituted solution? And that is given to you right here. Reconstituted concentration is 40 micrograms per milliliter. Where will you find the average dosage instructions? In other words, what is the normal dose that an adult patient would get? You can see that that's not on the vial, so we would want to look at the package insert or again our drug book.